If by the end of this video you decide that this lens is right for you, I hope you'll use the link in the description. I get a small commission if you do so. I have never used a Sirui lens. In fact, until they reached out about today's lens, I didn't even know how to pronounce the brand. Sirui? 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 Well, the University of Google suggests it's Sirui. I had an Aunt Sue and an Uncle Raymond. Aunt Sue was kind of kooky, but really nice, and Uncle Raymond was just like one of the nicest humans ever. Beside the point. Focus. Since I've never touched a Sirui lens, let's learn about them together. Here's what I was able to find. Sirui has been around since 2001, and I assume people probably knew them at that time for their accessories, tripods and such, because that's what they were doing. That was until 2019 when they entered the lens game with a 50mm f1.8 1.33 anamorphic lens, which I wouldn't be of any use to someone like me, but I'd certainly like to play with one. And that's where lenses started for Sirui. Something I find interesting about Sirui's lenses is who makes them. Since we established that they started in the accessories game and now they're getting in the lens game, I assumed it was a resurgence of the days of OEM mix match, no-name, store brand mess that gave us things like Solagor, Vivitar, Baraflex, Hanimex, and probably 70 others. However, that is not the case. Sirui lenses are made by a company called Guangdong Sirui Optical Company. That's right, they actually make their own lenses, and I respect that. Anyway, throughout the last few years of this young lens manufacturer's life, they have expanded the anamorphic line as well as others, all cine-focused. Cine housings, manual focus, you get the point. Up until then, Sirui was focusing on cine glass, but in 2024, they released the Aurora 85 f1.4 AF. Full frame, stills focused, autofocusing. Fast forward to August of this video's year, 2025, just a few months ago, they reached out to Z-Wade Photo, me, about reviewing a lens. It took a while to get it because it must have been hot, and so today we have the Sirui Aurora 35mm f1.4. What the heck is the Aurora, you may ask? It's a natural electrical phenomenon characterized by the appearance of streamers of reddish and greenish light in the sky, especially near the northern or southern magnetic poles. Stupid. Kidding. Sirui's Aurora line appears to have a product scope defined as a series of reasonably compact, lighter weight, full frame, autofocusing, fast aperture, cost-effective mirrorless lenses available in E, L, X, and Z mounts with a high optic to dollar ratio. So it's a high value proposition. Did you notice a moment ago when I said a series of lenses? Well, they also had the 85 1.4 Aurora. Now I have the 35 f1.4 Aurora. But two lenses are hardly a series, Z-Wade. I agree. So I'll add that there are 3 more focal lengths planned, totaling a 5-lens series, which is supposed to equate to a full kit of primes. The focal lengths are all 𝑭𝑚𝑪, with the 24 1.4 and the 50mm f1.4 seeming like obvious steps. And I agree. The third lens, if I was to bet money on it, I'd bet it's telephoto. 135 1.4 seems obvious, but I think it'd be absolutely sick if they just let Viltrox have the cost-effective 135 market share and go 180 f1.4. That would be so sick. But I never get my way. Brief history out of the way, the Aurora 35 1.4 is available now, and here's the gist. The Sirui Aurora 35mm f1.4. Oh, fuck. Ugh. I said Sirui, and my iPad that I'm using as a teleprompter thought I said Siri. The Sirui Aurora 35mm f1.4 became available for purchase on September 29th, 2025 for $549 USD. It's 2.9 inches in diameter and 4.3 inches long, that's 75.95 by 104.9 millimeters, and has a spec weight of 495 grams or 1.1 pounds. Its surprisingly complex 16 elements and 11 group optical construction includes 3 aspherical, 2 ED, 1 SED, and 2 HRI glass elements. It has not 9, not 11, but 13 aperture blades with an aperture range of f1.4 to f16 and a minimum focus distance of 1.15 feet or 35.05 centimeters. I feel like I screwed up that metric conversion. Function-wise, you'll find lots of switches and things around the lens, including a function button, an iris lock aperture lock button, auto manual focus switch, and aperture ring click on-off switch. While not fully weatherproof, it has been designed with resistance in mind, with weather sealing at the mount and at potential trouble areas down the barrel, as well as fluorine coating on the front element. The lens claims it's dust-proof and dirt and raindrop resistant. So what do we think of this lens right off the bat? It actually has a nice weight to it. It's not heavy at all, but it doesn't feel light and cheap and flimsy. So that's a nice weight. I like that. I think it's mostly made of metal. It's very cold. Yeah, metal barrel. That's good. Metal lens mount. The manual focus ring feels stiff, but it's smooth. It's not like jittery. Iris lock. Function button is nice and clicky. Auto manual. And the aperture click. Having an aperture ring, I do find it fun for them to be clicky, but I do find myself like not using them. I think they're cool, and I think lenses should have them, especially if it's like a legitimate control, right? If it switches from manual to like an electronic control, that's great because electronics can fail, but mechanicals don't fail as often. I don't know if that's the case or not. I've actually never like taken a dive into it on how that works, but I do find myself not using them. I usually put them in their auto function, and in this case, I would lock it. That way it doesn't bump off of that. And I do like that option. I think Nikon should incorporate that into their lenses because I absolutely hate their back ring, and I turn them off in camera because I always bump them. But it would be nice if there was a switch that automatically told the camera to turn that off because I hate diving into the menus to do that. I'm sure there's probably a way to set it to your camera to where you could turn that on and off, but I haven't done that because all of my buttons do other jobs. So I do like them. I like that it's there. I just find myself not ever using them. In this particular lens, it feels pretty good. There's not a whole lot of like feedback on it. Unless you go like really fast, then you can hear it. But it's quiet and you can't feel it that much. Let's check the lens cap here. The design of their lens caps is pretty interesting. I think it would be hard to grab if you had gloves on. I know, it's pretty good. It's definitely not going to pop off on your jeans because it's actually kind of recessed. That's kind of nice. And the lens hood does have a button lock on it, but it doesn't really seem to be needed. Does it only work if you do it this way? Yeah, there you go. Lens hood is nice and rigid. It's plastic, but it's like hard, unflexible plastic. And we've got a lock on there, which I do like. Pretty good. Although when it's on here like this, that does kind of pop kind of easy. If you hit that on your jeans, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that might pop off. So I would definitely carry it like this. It feels like a high quality made lens, honestly. Interesting. Mine actually says sample only. Well, I'm really hopeful for this. I hope it's as good optically as it feels. It feels like it's made really, really great. If the optics are as good, then it's probably going to blow the Nikon 3514 out of the water, which is not honestly that hard to do, especially in this price range. I'm not a big fan of that lens. All right, let's step out into the field and let's see what this lens can do optically. It's really cold today, as you can see by my attire, and Maren doesn't particularly like her coat. She's getting big since last time y'all saw her. So I've got the Sirui 35 f1.4 Aurora out here, and we're gonna do our little testing here. As per the usual, we're gonna do our red saturation. No idea where our blue lighter went. It's around here somewhere. These are my poop flags for early morning poops with Maren. But we can use some of those for the green. Probably the yellow too. Let's grab the red. It looks a little dull through the viewfinder. And that sun is brutal, isn't it? Sorry guys. Let's get the green. Oh, there's the letter. Yellow. Let's check out our focus speed here. I've noticed on closer subjects that I'm probably 2 feet away from the blue lighter. It's a little jittery. Like the closer you get, the more jittery it gets. It doesn't have a particularly close focus. In fact, it's acting like it is, but it's totally not. So it seems like it really needs like a defined subject. Yeah, like it can't just focus on the lighter because there's like no details on it. It has to, but it can do it like on the actual this piece right here. No other lens that I found so far has a hard time focusing on this, which as we can see, it's just kind of smooth, but there's like no definition or details. So I'm gonna flip it around on that and see if it can find it with just a little bit of extra color in there. It does a little bit better of a job, but that's kind of unique. So I'm gonna take a picture of the smooth side. The camera thinks it's in focus, but that's what it looks like. And if I flip it, camera thinks it's in focus, and there it is. So that's kind of strange. She does not like her jacket. Sorry, baby, it's cold. It's cold, you have to wear it. Otherwise, you can't really play outside very long. Then you'll get restless and destructive. Stop trying to eat it. No, don't eat it. Paid a lot of money for that because she's a 2X. Anyway, let's check out focus speed. It's not super duper fast. It's not super duper slow. It's kind of just like maybe just a little bit south of moderate. So it's a little slower than moderate. But I will say the focus ring, it's really smooth, kind of stiff, but the throw is gigantic from completely out of focus to infinity. Wow. Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to test out from minimum focus all the way to infinity, and I'm going to count the turns, like the finger turns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost exactly 6. And what I'm considering a finger turn is like this. So what I can do with one roll of my fingers, that'll vary a little bit per person. Someone with longer fingers obviously can turn more. But yeah, that is a ton of throw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That time it took 7.5. That's an incredibly long throw. So it's good if you're doing like a precision work, which is it's not typical of a 35 to be doing kind of fine macro level detail focusing. Man, I do not like this dang cold. But we gotta walk over here and check black and white ability. Oh, you crazy girl. I'm just gonna hold this up real quick. I have to make sure I take a picture specifically for one of my oldest subscribers, Roy Bixby. And so I just have to have the perfect one. So I gotta find it real quick. What? It's me. I need to play around a little bit with minimum focus. See how close we can get. Okay, we're going right there as usual. Kick this up. About right there. And then let's do one backing up just about an inch. Anytime you're doing minimum focus, always remember that it's fun to test how close it'll focus, but it's usually not gonna look nearly as good as if you back up just a hair, and it'll become that much sharper, and you know, the distance isn't gonna make that much of a difference. So I have to say, going through these, it seems to be a pretty nice lens. Just looking at the back of the screen. Of course, I shoot in neutral, and so I'm used to seeing things a little more dull. Okay, I'm gonna walk around the yard a little bit. I don't have time to do a walk around, but I'll save the pictures of real stuff for another video, but I'm gonna find some stuff around here to photograph before I go in and look at the results. All right, so here we are in Lightroom. Let's take a look at our red saturation here. Red saturation looked really good. Maybe just barely on the orange side, but it's very luscious. Looking at the green looks really good. And actually went back and like double checked everything because I thought that my exposure was like way off. And this like to me looks really like underexposed. So I don't know what's going on between the camera and whatever. This was just using the feed from my EVF to set my exposure. And this is what the exposure meter said. So that's kind of bizarre. Again, green looks good. Blue looks good. Now in the video, I was talking about how it seemed to have a hard time focusing on things that didn't have like any detail. Now any other Nikon lens, in fact, every lens that autofocuses on the Z system that I've used would just find the lighter. But this one couldn't find it right here because it was smooth. But focusing right here, it did just fine. Again, there it couldn't find anything to focus on because it's like a smooth surface. And then it found this. So this is the actual test I did. It was able to find this because it's not just a totally smooth surface, and so it has like a color change to find and just some kind of differentiation. But I just found that really strange because no other lens so far has done that. Weird, unique thing. Marin not enjoying the jacket. Which brings us to our black and white ability test here. We know the rules. We just hit the black and white button. Kind of overexposed it. It doesn't have great black and white ability. We'll try that a little bit later on, but it is rather boring black and white ability. Not much of a range there. And for Mr. Roy Bixby, these are his favorite things. Believes. It's that time of year again, buddy. It's not super duper sharp when you're this close. Seems to be a little cool rendering rather than warm rendering or neutral rendering. Bokeh looks really nice. Maybe it has a bit of a swirl to it. It's kind of a slightly unique looking bokeh. That must be due to the 13 aperture blades, I'm sure. And here we're testing out minimum focus. It's actually pretty good at minimum focus. Obviously, it's not as sharp as it'll ever be. And then we back up a little bit. This is really where you want to... yeah, see, it's just much better if you just back up like an inch or so. But it seems to be pretty sharp. I'm looking in these little areas here for any fringing. A little bit of green fringing in these shadowy areas, which happens sometimes. These little tiny cracks will sometimes have a green fringe to them. And I see a little bit of green fringing here. Green fringing isn't something I see a whole lot in modern lenses. Often you'll get some purple fringe still, but I don't see a lot of green, it seems like. But it's ever so slight. At f1.4, this certainly isn't bad at all for a third-party lens. It is not bad. And honestly, we see purple fringing often in areas like this, like absolutely blasted, blown-out highlights. It doesn't seem to be a huge issue on the Sirui 3514. I do like the bokeh though. The bokeh looks really good. The contrast is nothing that makes me want to jump up and down, but it's certainly not bad. I would just give it a 2 on a scale of 1 to 3, so it's right there in the middle. I'd give it a little bit north of 2 if I did decimals, which I don't. I love the backgrounds on this. You know, the wider the lens, just the less the background is going to be bokeh-licious. It's just the way it is. It's never going to be that far out of focus, you know, compared to something in the 50 to telephoto, whatever. You get my point. But this is pretty narrow on its depth of field, and I do like it. I wish I could get a little bit closer on the minimum focus, but, you know. So I decided to stop down to f2.8 and see what the sharpness looks like. And it's pretty damn sharp, I'd say. Actually, I'm starting to think that this is quite a nice lens. I mean, it's way better than the 3514 by Nikon. That is designed to be a lesser lens optically than the 35 1.8S line. It's just, that's what it's supposed to not be as sharp and as contrasty and as good optically. I don't like that lens because I think it's really overpriced. You know, this is kind of in the same range. The Sirui 35-1.4 is in the same range, but I think this is a better lens. It is cooler rendering, I would say, and which is kind of fun because usually what we see nowadays is a very neutral rendering, which is good if you're like a, you know, if you can just edit the look that you want, that's fine, but it's certainly less fun whenever you're shopping. Another one at f2.8. Yeah, it's quite sharp. I think Sirui did a good job with this lens. Let's check this black and white ability. It's just absolutely nothing to write home about. I would call this a 1 in black and white ability, which is unfortunate. Another one from Mr. Roy Bixby. Little grave digger action. Maybe we'll give this a little radial gradient. Oh, there we go. There's another one. Oh no, I didn't. Actually, I accidentally hit HDR. I mean, that's a little hot right there, but that's pretty cool. Does HDR and black and white ability work together? Cool, I've never done that before. Yeah, it looks like crap, actually. Actually, just hitting it with a little moody brown. I love that. I played with animal eye tracking a little bit to see if it had the ability to keep up the speed, and it seems like it was following it pretty good. Yeah, we got like a little bit of movement or whatever, but it's not bad. I hope you guys can see the very cool tone that you get out of this lens. And this is just on auto ISO, by the way. It's very cool rendering. I'm kind of used to seeing more real carefully. I'm going to count down from 3. 3, 2, 1. Boom. So this is more cool, and kind of what I'm used to seeing is this is more like neutral. It's just barely a bit of difference, but it's a cooler rendering lens. Yeah, it kind of started to fall off a little bit with her not moving. A little more shallow depthy stuff. Lots of detail in this lens. And the contrast isn't like screaming to me, but it's certainly not bad. Yeah, actually, you know that time has gone by. I do kind of prefer lenses to have more of a neutral rendering rather than a cool or warm rendering, because I actually don't particularly like the way that Marin's coat looks with this cooler rendering. And that means in like all of these, I would just have to correct it a little bit. I'd have to warm each of them up, and that would get kind of annoying. So I guess I'm kind of spoiled on the less fun lenses. But anyway, nice and sharp. It nailed her eye. So yeah, overall, I think Sirui did a really good job with this lens. I'm actually, usually with these lens reviews, I'm not really that excited to go out and actually take pictures with it. Because they're usually just like not that good. But I think that this is a pretty darn good lens, and it comes in at a good price. I think if Aurora is supposed to be a high value proposition, I definitely think that Sirui nailed the scope of what the Aurora line is supposed to be, which is, you know, a high optic to dollar ratio. I think they're just a little bit north of that. And as far as like the build quality, I think they're way north of that. Yeah, I enjoyed using this lens, and I am looking forward to going out and actually taking some real pictures with it. Normally, this would be the last video I do on like a lens review of a lens that was sent to me for free. But no, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go and use it. Again, if you decide that you want to pick this lens up, check the links in the description. I get small commissions if you do that. I'm Z Wade, the Z Wade, and Z Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube.